Hey there and welcome to another video of MeasureSchool.com, where we teach you the data-driven way of digital marketing. Today we want to talk about the new Google Tag Manager regex table that was recently announced, or just 2 days ago really. And we're here live on YouTube and Facebook to show you this announcement and do a little bit of a demo of this new regex table. So without further ado, let's dive into what this regex table is all about. So when you go into your Google Tag Manager account, you will find in the variables menu here a new user-defined variable that you can build, which is the regex table. So if you don't know what the lookup table was before, so we can also build a lookup table. And this was also a great feature to actually rewrite basically whatever you input. So if you have a variable that you might want to rewrite, or you want to get a different output out of this variable, you are able to do this via this lookup table. So all you need to have is an input, and this could be, for example, a page path. So let's say the input would be homepage, and then you can define an output and saying this is actually not homepage with a small h, but with a big H here, right? Or a capital H. And that would rewrite it then in your Google Tag Manager account. So you can pick up this variable and then send it on to a tool, or use that in different circumstances. And there were some really cool different use cases for different different use cases that were quite creative. So let's say, for example, you would have your page URL, and you would say, okay, I want to feed the page URL into this lookup table, and I could input something like demoshop.com, and then I would output this UA code, let's say this UA code, and whenever the page URL matches exactly what it said in here, it would give me out this URL code, this UA code. And this UA code could be used in Google Analytics tag, for example. And this was often used when you would, for example, say, okay, I have actually a staging website, so staging.demoshop.com, and I want to have a different UA code outputted here, so I could send my data to a different account, right? Now, this was pretty cool already at the beginning when Google Tag Manager came out, but now it has become even cooler, because we are actually able now to use regex on these input conditions. What does that mean? Well, when you had an input condition for the page URL, it needed to exactly match whatever was in the page URL. So exactly that URL that was here needed to be in here in order for this to match up. If you were just off by one character or whatever, it would not match it up, and you would actually get an undefined or a default variable. So with this lookup table variable, we were already quite cool to rewrite this whole input and output, but now we can actually use this in the other form of regex tables. So when we go over to regex table, we again have an input variable. So for example, our page URL, and then we can input a regex pattern and then output that as well. Now, there are different examples that I could go through here. It's a bit tricky in a sense that I don't want to get too complicated here. But what regex really means, if you're not familiar with regex, we actually have a video on that as well. What regex really means is that you have more tools available to actually match something inside of a string. So if you want to try out this whole thing, you can actually get one of these regex testers. This is just one regex tester here that you could put in. You could put in a test string, and then you could find out what regex would I need to input here in order to match this up. So if I had a URL just like this, demoshop, and I had another URL that would be called staging, now I could say, okay, I want to match them up, and whatever is in here, so for example, demoshop, would match it up inside of this string. And therefore I could just say, okay, if the pattern would be demoshop here, I always want to output, for example, my one UA code, right? XXX. Okay. Now, if I wanted to say that I actually only wanted to get the domains here that have actually only this demo shop in here, I could say, okay, I don't want to have any dot in front of that or so. So in the end, I could obviously make a very direct match. So that would be this, but you need to be careful because you need to escape actually certain keys, and that would only match up one of these, right? And all of the other staging would then be, let me put that in here. And let's say we have a demo shop.com here and a dot at the beginning here. So you would have, for example, everything else should go to a different UA account that is defined like this, right? So it doesn't matter if you would have a staging site or let's say a demo site, or you would have a staging 2 site. It would always match this up to our demo shop, except of the first one, because, well, not the first one, it needs to have a dot here in front. So except of the first one, if you escape this actually, there you see, it's getting tricky. You always need to try out the whole regex in order to find out, okay, what would it actually match up? And in this case, all these domains would then be outputted in this way, right here. Now, let me give you a real example here because this is this is something I just made up. So let's really see how you can make this useful. So you might know that Google Analytics tags have the capability of actually sending in, let's go into a Google Analytics tag here. You have the ability to actually send in content groups. And content groups are really cool way to actually group your content in a way that is then visible within Google Analytics. So for example here, if you wanted to build in content groups, you could send this in with your UA tag, and we would have that then available for all your different page views to group them actually into one or the other content groups. So here we have content groups, for example, the product categories, the clothing. So how would you actually like to, how could you actually input this into a content group? So you're grouping different page views in one. And previously you could build a lookup table and saying, okay, exactly this URL belongs to this group. Exactly this URL belongs to this group. Now with the regex, we can actually go ahead and build something very flexible here. So let's go back, discard this all, and build a lookup table, regex lookup table variable, okay, right here. And as the input, we would take our, let's take our page path, and then just look at what is the page path right here. This would be the variable, our input variable would be, our path would be just this slash. So we could match that up with, we need to escape this with the slash. So there's a certain syntax to regex that you would need to learn in order to make most out of this. And this would be the home page. Then we would add something and say, okay, let's say we wanted to get all these product pages in one, and we see all these product pages have actually this slash product in here, which would be great. So if you go to another page, let's test this out. We see here product, and we can test this in our regex tester. So let's take this different product ID and write product in here. Every time there's a product match in here, it would match it up. So let's put this in as well. We have product, and let's put this into the content grouping product. Let's have another group, which would be, for example, if you go to a category, we see here there's a product category in here. So, or the word category. So match that up every time, category, and we would put this into a category page. Okay, and then we have maybe something else. Let's say we're going to the cart page, and we have here a cart page. Let's say we would then go into the checkout, so we would need to have a product actually in the checkout. So let's put that in. and go into the checkout directly, so that checkout would look like this. So you have checkout, and we would also put that in checkout. Let's say checkout pages. This is the cart page, product pages, home page. That's fine. Okay. So that should do it. Now we need to be careful. There are some advanced options that will actually mess this up if you don't do it correctly. There are two very important settings here that we'll go over in a second. But one is the full match option. So this is basically, you can read through this, but this is basically the equivalent to having the start symbol and the end symbol for your regex. So it would need to have a full match, and I will turn this actually off because we are also only partially matching right here. And then we can enable content groups to actually replace stuff, and this is also something we're going to turn off for now because we don't want to replace anything. We just want to have an input and get the right output. So let's try this out. And this is our regex table for our content groups. And we can go into our preview and debug mode, refresh our page, and see in the variables, hopefully that works, we have here our regex table, and it says here homepage, which is not correct because I inputted the wrong regex. So let's go quickly into our regex bar here. This would match up any kind of slash. So we would actually need to have a slash with a $sign here. So it says this is the end of the string that we want to match, and don't match any further. Let's try this. I hope I've done it correctly. No. Right. So if you can figure it out, let me know. I hope the other ones work. Or is this all now homepage? Ah, this is all homepage. So something is still wrong. Page path. I will try to do the actual, where is it? That symbol in here. Okay guys, this is live, so bear with me. It's basically how it would be in real life because you're always just trying stuff out and trying to get this to work. So here we go now. Okay, so we have here, this has been rewritten. So our input variable was our page path, and it went into our regex table. The regex table said, okay, there's a match for exactly this bit here. So it's so we have our page path that goes in, and there is a match right here. So we will output right this value here. So you have our product pages, and then we have our regex table pages. If we go to a category page, now the word category is in here, but also the word product. So I'm not really sure. Okay, it also says product pages. So we need to probably dumb this down a bit. No, make this a little bit more specific, which would be trying to escape this here. So you see here, we need to use a regex thoroughly, and we need to test it thoroughly in order to make this actually work. Otherwise, you are matching up all kinds of stuff. So now we have our category page, and this is matching up. So if we go further and into our product pages and put something into the cart, we should have our product pages now here. Let's put something into the cart. Your cart. So now it should be matching up to our cart page. And when we go further into the checkout, we should see our checkout pages. So this is just one way to actually classify and group your different oh my god, I'm really dark here, so I'm gonna turn up my my ISO here a bit. Sorry, this is all live, so you'll see that we are really doing this. And So this is a way to group actually your different pages into categories. So we have different product pages that are now in the product pages tab. And what can we do with this variable now? We can actually send it into our Google Analytics tag as a content group. So we would be able to say, okay, we send in a page view every time, and we also want to classify this page view as a content group. So in the advanced settings, enable override, more settings, we have here our content groups. And here we could send in, if we have that configured, our index. So you would definitely need to configure that in your admin section here. This is unfortunately not visible to me because I'm on the demo account. And then you could configure it. We have another video on content groups as well. So I trust that you would be able to do this with the help of this video. And then we can send in these content groups and actually get the data out in Google Analytics as well. So we have a little bit better overview on the different sections that our users go through. So this is just one example where I could see a regex table being super valuable because you can just implement this fast without going through hundreds and hundreds of URLs to actually classify them. Okay, let's go into some of the other rules here that I had under the advanced settings. So we had under advanced settings here the full match option. So the full match option is turned on by default. Now if we would have that turned on and we have a category here, we would actually need to have a full match. So not just a partial match, we would need to input a regex that fully matches this. So how would we accomplish this, for example, for this product? So I'm just putting these signs in to input the literal slashes. And then we have a whole bunch of stuff in front of this and afterwards. So I'm going to put in a wildcard, which is the dot, and a plus sign, which will match this all other things up. And then also at the end, I will match this up as well. So this would be the full match equivalent of whatever we have put in. And if you have this full match option turned on, then you need to have these, it's basically like having these two signs in your regex. So be aware of that. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you is that there is an enable capture group and replace functionality. And this is pretty cool because we can actually take whatever we have matched up and input it here or output it here in our output. Where would this be useful? If you wanted to, for example, rewrite a specific thing. I had this one case, this one client where we didn't have a data layer set up, so we needed to get that information from the URL because in the URL we had everything. So for example here in this order received page, this thank you page, we have our order ID actually in the URL, and we wanted to extract that from the URL. Now you can obviously use JavaScript for this, but with a custom, no, with a regex table, you could also take this, extract this from this URL and then output it as well. So how would we do that? Let's start a new regex table here for the order ID. And this time we are gonna input our URL again. And then we want to match this up somehow. So let's take this URL, not this URL, this URL, and input it here as a, as a test string. So this is what we want to match up. How would we do this? We actually need to have a classifier for the numbers. So there is a classifier called D. This is D is any digits. So we could say \D, and this would match up all the numbers here. Now we have 3 in a row, so let's match up 3 in a row, and we only get these. They also have slashes, so let's input them as well. These need to be escaped, obviously. Oops. Now we need to have a full match here, and we need to put this into a group because we want to actually extract the group here. So I will go ahead and put this into parentheses. This is also something that you need to learn if you wanted to use this completely. And we have this first group here that we have now matched up. Now we need to match up the whole string as we did before. So I'm just going to do the plus, the dot plus. Don't know if that's the best way. You might as well tell me in the chat if you're more experienced than me. And we have now our pattern that we can import into our Google Tag Manager here. And as the output, we actually can use, and this is something that's described in the documentation here, a dollar syntax replacement. So this is interesting because everything that is now matched could be implemented in the output as well. So we can choose different outputs here, and it depends what you have inputted. So if you want to take whatever you have inputted and outputted, then you would have just the dollar $and sign. Now we have captured actually a group, and this would be under this $n, so whatever number you have, or $NN. So in our case, this would be the first group that we have captured, and I want to output the $1. So let me see if this works. This is something that I have thought up and maybe haven't tested thoroughly enough. And we get our variables. And yes, our regex order ID now matches up to that number, extracts that number, and outputs it to our lookup table variable, or regex variable. And this is also one of the use cases that you could extract data. Now, you might have seen that I have been working here a lot with the different strings that are around, right? So we have paid our URL, our page URL that we actually looked at and then extracted or matched up certain parts. And this is one of the use cases that I came up with. But obviously, you could take any kind of input variable that is available to you. So if you have any kind of click element, or if you have something that is on your button that gets transferred over into a click ID, for example, or a click class. If you have different classes where you only want to match up certain elements that have certain classes, these are probably very specific cases, and I don't have an example here right now, but this is definitely possible because the input variable is flexible, so you can change it around. I just took this easy example of the page URL right here. All right, so this is the regex table variable. I need to definitely play with it a little bit more to come up with a few more use cases that would match up, and I would hopefully find a few more tricks and tips to give you later on when it comes to regex tables. Now, this is really it already. An exciting new feature here in Google Tag Manager. If you want to find out more about this, then Simo Ahava has already written up a blog post. Really just the only blog post that is thoroughly out there, because I just checked the Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager release notes, and I couldn't find anything about this new feature. So Simo definitely has the scoop here, and check that out as well if you want to find a little bit out more. He has also some great links here on learning how to do regex. One of my videos also is about regex, so you could check that out as well. And we have here also the tutorials, regex 1. Yeah, this is a great tutorial that I would also encourage you to go through in order to learn all these different syntaxes that you would need in order to make regex work. Now, regex is anyways super valuable when it comes to Google Tag Manager, but also Google Analytics, and I would also say when you do anything in spreadsheets or JavaScript, then you need to learn regex. It will change your world, really. All right, that's really it with this little video of today. If you like this video, then please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel right over there, because we'll bring you new videos just like this every week. And you can also click on that video which is also pretty interesting. Now, my name is Julian. Till next time. All right, guys.